all the more reason to pause and practice, right?
Mhm.
So go ahead and start to give yourself that extra space to pause, to settle in. I have a poem I want to share, and of course it's escaping me at the moment. It's just pause. Practice is just that. An opportunity to just pause and to notice what we feel, what we think, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell. Notice what is and what isn't. Thich Nhat Hanh says to practice Buddhist meditation, you only need to do two things. First, stopping, and then deep looking. And my personal experience is that it's difficult for me to do a deep dive into introspection, into inner looking, or looking at anything for that matter, without stopping. I correlate that a little bit to the sense that I would love to be able to read while driving, not me driving, someone else driving, but it makes me carsick, right? I have to stop. My body needs to stop. My mind needs to stop for me to look deeply, whether it's to read, to observe, or simply to rest. I need to stop. Thich Nhat Hanh goes on and he says, when you stop, you become solid and concentrated. Love that. Like the potency of who we be is richer, is more concentrated, more potent when we give ourselves permission to pause. He says that allows us to practice looking deeply into what's here, and looking deeply into the nature of things brings insight. This understanding, which again in the Buddhist tradition is less about the intellectual understanding and more about the emotional compassion of allowing, this understanding, this being with, will liberate us from our suffering. The roots of our suffering rest in the imbalance of expectations, attachments to those expectations, and the inability or unwillingness to shift and allow. That shift and allowing begins with a pause, with an interruption perhaps of the flow itself, to bring greater awareness to the presence of that flow because of the change in the energy current. For many years growing up and even into my adulthood, movement was the way in which I felt significant. I felt like I was doing, therefore I was worthy of living, of breathing, of being present. In other words, my doing and busyness was a reflection of my desire to be integrated, to be whole, and evidence of my misconception that I wasn't already whole, complete, and enough. So the poem that I want to share for our reflection is from C. Elizabeth Knapp, spelled Knapp. And it's entitled Whole, Whole. So we pause, we look into what is here. And the poem, the words, might just help give us a focus, a direction in which to apply our attention in light of this ebb and flow between wholeness and individuality, between connection and independence, between enoughness and judgment of our inadequacy, our imperfection. Whole. Just as I tell myself I've arrived, as I've breathed with mindful sensitivity into the placement of my feet, legs, hips, torso, neck, head, and arms. Just as I become my pose, tasting perfection, the tiniest insistent urge to move visits. Exploring deeply in the center of continuous breath, inquiring, I inhale and then lengthen, exhale and soften. Spread the toes of one foot farther apart. Plant the heel of the other more solidly on the earth. Rooting through soles of feet, radiating from center, I engage and draw focus. Discovering one place, one small place where I can let go. In that instant, an invitation arises. I accept. I subtly shift my hips. I am transformed. Space, buoyancy, and ease bloom from this cultivated ground. Eyes closed, air caressing skin, senses heightened. Conscious of the grace that flows here in this moment. I am whole. Knapp's poem reminds me of the Kripalu tradition of breathe, relax, feel, witness, and allow. And really, it's in that pausing to breathe and to relax that we can access this observation, this skill of being with, and then adapting as needed. So we breathe and relax. We feel to reassess. And by feel, I mean the senses and the emotions. What is here right now? And how might I offer compassion to myself, to my story, to my needs, to my wants, to my unmet desires? Breathe, relax, feel. And when the witness from within speaks and clarifies what adjustments, minor shifts of the toes or the heel or the hip placement can facilitate not just the skeletal alignment, but the energetic alignment, allowing for an easy flow of breath and prana. We can settle into the stillness, to the allowing. But it all begins with the pausing. Pausing to observe and comment. Pausing to be with what is, so that we can open to clearer seeing. A clearer seeing always brings us to remember the wholeness, the oneness, the unity, the connection. That is prana speaking, that is prana affirming the truth that is. So there's a bit of an irony, a bit of a dichotomy, that as we begin the journey of pausing and observing, we first begin with noticing all of the parts and the pieces, noticing what distinguishes the breath from the body, the arm from the leg, the now from the before or the after. But in that observation, those dotted lines or firm boundaries of distinction start to fade away. And the union resumes as the nature of all things, because we've interrupted the flow to notice, to remember. Not every meditation brings me to that oneness. It's enough to show up, to pause, to cultivate that observation. This is the practice that increases the likelihood of the accidental arrival into bliss, into oneness. But if we don't show up, if we don't pause, then for sure, inspiration will be more difficult to access. So we pause, and that is enough. We breathe, we notice, and anytime the mind might wander away from this intention of observing, of breathing, relaxing, feeling, witnessing, and allowing, of falling prey to the misconceptions and false beliefs that somehow we are separate, unworthy, unacceptable. That falsehood is released with the exhale, with the sigh, with the letting go of the mind's thoughts. This is the release of the suffering, the misbeliefs, the untruths, the attachments to what we thought this was all about. It brings us back to the empty moment, the potential moment, the container full whole moment. It's right here, right now. Oh, that you are welcome to extend your pause, your meditation, your remembering, as long as your schedule and your body agrees, is willing. If that's the case, remain where you are and just receive this blessing, trusting the intention will find its way to your heart, to your being. The wholeness is our story, is our truth, is our gift. Remembering it, that's the practice. It begins with the pause to be with what is here now. And you breathe deeply and move freely in body and mind and energy and thought. and in deeds. So you may labor lovingly and live vibrantly, intimately with prana. Namaste.
Thank you very much.